You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today I thought I would talk about converting term again. I've had a few conversations with people in the last few weeks about term conversions, and when we're talking about it, it seems to be still a confusing point. Some of these people are listeners, and I know that I've talked about it before, so I thought it was a topic that could use some more clarification. Now, a lot of you out there might be thinking, I could care less about term insurance. I just am interested in infinite banking, and I know that that is a cash value whole life insurance policy, so I don't want any term insurance. But again, I just like to point out that having some term insurance is a great way to be able to grow your banking system without having to go through a health underwriting again. Sometimes our health changes, and not for the better sometimes. And so it's great when you have some of that term insurance locked in and you get to use that same health rating to open a new whole life contract. So oftentimes when someone is applying for, maybe I should say, a whole life policy to begin the process of infinite banking, sometimes that's not very much coverage for them. So there's a couple of different ways or reasons why you might acquire term insurance when you're seeking to implement infinite banking. And one of them might be simply that the death benefit won't be high enough to protect your family. So when we're solving for infinite banking, we are purposely reducing the cost of the death benefit. And when we reduce the cost of the death benefit, basically reducing the death benefit, that's going to shrink down your death benefit so that your total death benefit to protect your family is too low. If you have a family you want to protect or some person that you are interested in protecting, someone who's dependent on your income, someone who needs you around. So then we would use term insurance to bump up the overall protection so that you have enough life insurance coverage while you're focusing on the infinite banking style whole life policy. So this is one reason why you might have a term policy alongside of a whole life policy as its own standalone separate life insurance policy. Another reason for acquiring term, maybe you're not that concerned about the death benefit total, but you would like the ease of being able to grow your banking system with no issue and no problems and no underwriting in the future. And so you can acquire this separate term policy and lock in that coverage. And maybe you have excellent health. Maybe you're preferred plus, super preferred rating. And if you lock in term insurance while you have that health rating at your younger age, that health rating will stay with you. So then later on, you're able to apply that best health rating, that very good health rating that you may not have 5 or 10 years from now. You can have that health rating applied to your new whole life policy by converting some of your term insurance to a whole life policy. Now, I know a lot of you are doing a lot of learning and maybe you're thinking of the term rider that sometimes is put into the whole life policy, and that is not what I'm referring to. I am referring to a completely separate policy. So when you do have term insurance inside of your whole life policy, that actually can be converted as well. Once that term insurance rider that's wrapped into your whole life policy, maybe when you don't need it anymore, you are able to convert that into its own standalone policy. However, you have to wait until it's not needed inside of your whole life policy anymore, because you can't just convert that whenever you want, and then maybe that causes your whole life policy to become a MEC contract, to become taxable. So that's why we can't really depend on that rider for being able to grow the banking system whenever we want, because we have to leave it there for a certain amount of time. But if you have a standalone term policy outside of your whole life contract so that you end up with 2 separate contracts, then that policy you can convert whenever you want. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you have a $1 million term insurance policy alongside of your whole life. You got a whole life, you're funding it with as much as you can or whatever fits your budget. You've started a whole life policy for the purposes of infinite banking, and that's all your budget could afford, but you wanted to lock in your insurability or protect your family with a larger death benefit total. So we tack on a term insurance policy of $1 million. Now, say a couple years goes by, you've had an increase in your income, maybe you've received a promotion or something, and now you'd like to fund more money into whole life insurance. Maybe you want to fund another $10,000 a year or $20,000 a year. Well, you won't be able to add that to your initial whole life contract, the one you started with. You will not be able to add that money to that contract because that would cause your policy to become a MEC, to become taxable. So you'd say, well, I guess I have to open another contract. Or maybe you want to open a contract on your spouse or on your children. But in any event, you'll need to open another contract to be able to add that much more cash, or really any more cash, into your banking system as a whole. So now how it works is we would be in touch. You would say, hey, I've had a promotion. I've had this extra cash. I want to do $10,000 more a year into a whole life contract. Okay, well, awesome. You actually already have term insurance in place. We put that in place a few years ago. You have $1 million term insurance product. And so let me work on some numbers and an illustration and find out what kind of death benefit you need in order to start funding a whole life policy at $10,000 a year. Because remember, when we're building these policies, we're building them backwards. We're not building them to solve for death benefit. We're building them to solve for cash. So I would take that amount, I would plug it into my software, and it would spit out some random death benefit number. That death benefit, what the software is saying is this is the minimum death benefit that you must purchase in order to fund a whole life policy with $10,000 a year. If you bring the death benefit down any farther, the contract would become a MEC contract. And with those numbers that have been created the way that I have structured it, then if you put any more cash, that would also cause the policy to MEC. But when we're trying to convert the policy, all we're going to do is ask the software, how much death benefit do I need? How much death benefit will be created into a new whole life policy with $10,000 a year? So let's just say it comes up with a death benefit of $225,000. So now that means that $225,000 of your $1 million term policy will be transitioned out of term, and now it will be its own standalone whole life policy. So in this scenario, you now have 3 policies. You have your initial whole life that you began in the first place. You still have the term insurance policy that started off at $1 million, but then you converted $225,000 of it to whole life. So now that term is only $775,000. Since the term insurance was at $1 million and it went down to $775,000, your price will go down accordingly as well on that term life policy. And now you'll have a third policy that would be a whole life policy at $10,000 a year with a death benefit of $225,000. I'm just going to say again, that was just random numbers, a random example. I did not calculate anything for that. So that is not anyone's true scenario. I just pulled those numbers out of thin air. So hopefully that clarifies this for a lot more people. The cool thing about converting that term is that there's no requirements. So you can convert any amount of it at any time within the term period up to a certain age, usually 70. You're able to convert any amount of it. You're not required to convert the whole amount at once. So if you have $1 million term, you don't have to come up with the funds to be able to convert all 1 million into a whole life policy in order to do it. You can convert whatever amount of term that you want, and it just will be based on your budget and what you can afford and what you want to do. For example, you could also decide to convert $100,000 of that $1 million whole life policy once every 10 years. You'd have 10 new policies, 10 new whole life policies. You could convert a chunk here, a chunk there, whenever you want until the end of the term period or until, again, about age 70. It may be different with different companies. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Just really wanted to clarify that and talk just specifically about that because I've been having a lot of conversations about it. I hope that that was helpful for you. If you'd like to talk this out some more, if you'd like to meet, you'd like me to be your advisor and work with you, you're welcome to reach out. Valerie at alphaomegawealth.com. I hope that you had a great week and you have a great upcoming week. And I look forward to next time to sharing something new. I hope you have a good one. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.